Welcome to the Ladies Discourse. This is your girl, Shad.
And your girl Taz.
We're your hosts on TLD. Today we're going to talk about home ownership versus renting. Before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you think it is better to own a home or to rent. I have been a homeowner for almost 27 years. Next month it will actually be 27 years. And I could say I have had my ups and downs in regards to home ownership. But if I had to choose between renting or owning, I would choose owning. We'll discuss why in this episode. One of the vehicles that most Americans build wealth with is through home ownership and their 401k plan. 65% of Americans own a home in America as of 2022. With it
hmm
being such a large component of most Americans' net wealth, I think it's a topic we should talk about. So let's get started. Taz, just wanted to ask you in regards to renting, what do you think are some of the benefits of renting?
Well, as a renter, someone who hasn't purchased their own home, I think I guess the first thing that comes to mind would be just the responsibility, that comes with owning a home. As a
Mhm.
renter, I'm not responsible for that aspect of it. I don't have to worry about cutting grass, cutting down trees.
Oh,
Um, you,
wow. You don't
you
have to
know,
cut grass?
Well, I mean, it's just depending on if you're living in a home or apartments, but
Okay.
just depending on what you're doing.
Yes.
So that's like I said, the lawn maintenance. You have
Mhm.
the foundation of a home. You have roofing and plumbing and
Mhm.
electrical.
Mhm.
Some people feel like if they don't update their home, they're not going to receive, appraisal values. And, it's just a lot of things that I think renters don't have to deal with versus a homeowner.
That's
Um, you
true.
know, a lot. A lot of people talk about the HOAs for those who live in those type of communities, and even that could be a hassle. I hear people talk about if their weeds is, a certain length, they can get fined, and that goes against their home, and it could just get real sticky. You got
Mhm.
appliances, and people talk about, oh, I got to get a new hot water heater, or I got to get a new AC unit, and things of that nature. So for me, I think those are some of the benefits, just not having a responsibility to maintain a property.
Okay. Well, that is a good point. And with home ownership, as you like you said, I know just living here, I've replaced two hot water heaters, a HVAC system, different plumbing issues. So, yeah, that is a good point that you don't have to worry about that. And
Right.
I think too, like if someone is new to an area, they may want to rent to check out, say they move to a new city, they may want to
hmm
rent first to learn the city, learn what area of the city they may want to live in before they lock into buying a home.
Absolutely. That's important. Your community, checking it out and making sure they got great schools and, great jobs that are not too far. And that makes all the difference. And just growth, because anytime it's growth, that property value will raise.
That's
So let me
true.
ask you, Shaw, when it comes to home ownership, what are some of the things that you've learned over the years that you didn't know or expect when owning your own home?
There are a few things that I've learned over the years of being a homeowner. The first thing that comes to mind is that the value of your home may depreciate, which causes your property taxes to go down too when it does depreciate. We always think, oh, it's going to appreciate, it's going to appreciate, but it doesn't always appreciate. And this is something, of course, we cannot control. I remember re- feeling that I made a bad decision by buying a home when the home prices decreased around 2009, 2010. I felt like I didn't make a good investment. The house the value of my house decreased less than what I paid for the house.
Right.
So that wasn't something that I was expecting. And I remember someone I know, she was talking about buying a house, and I told her, you may want to think twice about that because of what I and probably a lot of other people did experience. But as like anything else, things happen in cycles. Things go
Hmm.
down and then things go back up. So even though the prices did decrease like that, but now we see they have going back up. So,
So let
but
me
that was just something I wasn't expecting.
okay. So let me ask you: was there a certain reason why? I mean, okay. Well, I guess it is a reason, but do you know what was the reasons, and or
Well,
different reasons why that happens at different times?
I think it was because of those the bad mortgages that we talked about when
Hmm.
so many people were losing their homes because they were having all these creative mortgages, and so there was a flood of houses on the market, and I'm not sure if we had a small recession around that time too. So
Okay.
people were losing their houses, a lot of houses on the market, so the prices are going to go down. So
Okay.
that was the main reason.
Right. 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 No, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, and also I live around in a house with a lot of trees, and it's
Hmm.
wonderful in the summertime. They cool off the house, but I don't think I would buy another house with a lot of trees around it
Well,
because
listen, I've always said that I was like, they're beautiful, but I think they would have to be far out on the property. You know
mhm
what I'm saying? Nothing too
mhm
close because of the damage it can cause.
right. And like I had plumbing issues because of the trees. The roots of the
Hmm.
trees grew into the pipes outside of the house, so it was blocking the sewage from going out of the house. So they had to
Hmm.
dig up my front yard, and replace all of those pipes and break my driveway. So I would be careful with the placement of trees when purchasing
Oh,
a
right.
house.
Absolutely.
Another thing I learned is that your insurance company may not compensate you for a claim the way you think they would compensate you. A tree fell on my house um, and went through the roof.
Ooh.
And so, of course, the roof was damaged. And I was thinking that, okay, they'll repair the whole roof. But they didn't want to repair the whole roof. They just wanted to fix the front part of the roof and leave the back and side the way it was. So
Wow.
I think at that time I may have already had 2 layers of roof on my house. So if they would have did what they wanted to do, I would have had 2 layers on part of the roof and either one, or if I had them take off part of it, one and or 3 layers on another part. That's crazy.
Wow.
That's not
Wow.
to me
Right.
bringing the insurance the person that's holding the policy back to where they were. And I
Right.
went up multiple levels, but they still would not bend. So I just took paid for the difference myself and got a whole new roof.
Wow. But see, that's what I talk about, and I mentioned it in previous um episodes where that whole industry with that insurance is something that we definitely need to tap into because like I told you before, you paying and you paying, you paying, and as soon as you need to utilize them, they give you a
Mhm.
hard time, or they want to half do the job, or like you just said, they don't do it at all, or they drop you when you do use it. So I think
Mhm.
that's sad for someone who pays in for these situations only to not be covered. So
Yeah.
what are you paying for? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a shame when it comes to stuff like that.
Mhm. And I also think that's something I have to do now. A lot of times when you get into your home, you get your insurance and it renews annually. You just go kind of with whatever that new price is. But
Hmm.
we should shop for,
Oh, absolutely.
different insurance
Yes.
companies. I need to do that now because mine has gone up a lot.
Right.
And
Right.
so
I'm
And
a firm
then,
believer in that for sure. Whatever insurance it is, because like you said
mhm,
again, they
mhm,
just keep increasing, and there's no reason for that, or so yeah, it's always good to kind of look at that versus just having it on automatic,
right,
because I remember I ran into something similar, and I had an issue with my car, and they was like, oh, you didn't have full coverage, and it's like, wait, we had full coverage, and thank God, we was able to find it, but I was going to be covered. And I was just like, you see, if you don't keep
wow,
track of some of this stuff, they was just
mhm,
like, I'm sorry, it's nothing we can do. Your car was not covered. And it's like, no, 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 no. We don't even change this stuff. My husband don't even do anything with these type of things. So, mm-mm.
yeah. So those are just a few things that have come up over the years that I wanted to point out. What type of situations do you think is better to rent as opposed to own?
When you say situations, what do you kind of mean? I didn't really understand that when you mentioned situations. Are you just saying, is it better to rent?
What may be going on in an individual's life that may
Okay.
make it better for them to rent instead of own?
I'm a firm believer it depends on the person's situation. Um,
Mhm.
because to be honest, I see benefits in both. I think
Mhm.
renting is better when a person is just not ready financially to purchase a home. Meaning their credit is not right, their income, their savings, and et cetera, just does not line up enough for them to qualify for a home.
Mhm.
However, with home ownership, it has its perks, for those that are ready. Meaning, your family gets to grow up in a stable environment. There are tax credits and benefits to that. Like you mentioned about depreciation, I've learned that I guess it can go down, but if it's not on the down scale, it has the tendency to go up over time.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's considered an asset, and it
Right.
just give a person who owns a home a sense of ownership, you know, of having something. I know this guy that I listen to by the name of Julian. He has a tendency to say, if you're a renter, just call yourself homeless, and that
I
hit
heard
hard.
him say that. I was like, "Oh, wow."
Yeah, and I always kept that in the back of my mind because when I first stumbled on him years ago, I was blown away by that, and it made so much sense because, technically it's not yours. And if they want to come and say, hey, I sold the house or whatever the case may be, you have to uproot yourself and move on.
Mhm.
And, and that can happen in any, house that you may be renting or apartment that you may be renting. So he was definitely right on that, so
I never thought about
yeah.
it that way until I heard him say that.
Me either. And that's why, like I said, I like to listen to different people because everybody has a different type of perspective, which a
Mhm.
lot of times make a lot of sense. So, yeah. So let me ask you, Sha, what are some of the important things to know or remember when purchasing a home?
I think it is important to know that some things you could change and some things you cannot. You typically can't change the location of the house, but of course you could change paint colors, countertops, light fixtures, and things of that nature. I think the location is very important when selecting a
Hmm.
house. If you have children, like you were saying, Taj, you have to think about the schools in that area, if the schools are good. If you work outside the home, you have to think about how long your commute is going to be, according to where you select your house. Some people may want to live near relatives or they may want to live near their place of worship. So, those
Hmm.
things I think are very important. If I
Right.
had it to do all over again, I, if I could have, I was on the lower end when I was purchasing.
Hmm.
I would have probably purchased something smaller with a better location, if that makes
Okay.
sense. But
Okay.
that may not have even been feasible, so I don't know. But
Right.
that location is extremely important.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that makes a difference because, like you said again, it's everything. Because sometimes neighborhoods change, sometimes they change for the better, sometimes they change for the worse.
Mhm. Mhm.
You got situations where nothing changes, and then sometimes when things don't change, that's not necessarily good or bad. But so, it can kind of, be in
Yeah.
between. But yeah, I think that is important because that's something you are stuck with, not saying that it's
Hmm.
forever because nothing is forever, but once you make that purchase, it's like, hey, you got to kind of deal with it. So,
Yeah. I'd rather have less room, just say, but in a
mhm.
better location.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, too, what I know this people, with a lot of people, and it's something I didn't know, but a lot of times people look at the location before it becomes something. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had an aunt where she lives. It used to be the projects, and she
Mhm.
knew what it was going to become before she
Mhm.
moved there. So I think
Mhm.
that's good. I never knew that, but I was like, man, that's smart. And clearly there's things out there like that where people can see an area before it becomes that, up,
That's
what
true.
it is now. So I think that's always good, and I didn't never know that until she kind of told me that, and I was like, wow, that's interesting, that's good to know.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And something else is I would not have the key players of my real estate deal associated to each other. For example, I would not have my realtor recommend the home inspector. I would
Right.
ask a more neutral party for a home inspector referral. I'm not saying that any of the parties are not honest, but I think it's just a better way to do business to ensure that there's not a conflict of interest.
Absolutely. And I know
Yeah.
that's a plus because a lot of times most of these people nowadays they are working hand in hand. And it's not that it's nothing wrong if they're being on the up and up, but a lot of
Mhm.
times you do find that it is a conflict of interest and everybody is, rubbing shoulders and rubbing hands, trying to get something out of the deal. So I think that makes
Mhm.
more sense too. It's like, yeah, try to keep everything as separate as possible, just,
Mhm.
to make sure you're covered and you're getting the
Right.
best deal and home and making sure everything is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
See, when I got my house, my realtor, she knew the person that was selling the house. She knew that realtor, her realtor. She recommended me to the mortgage person, and she also referred the home inspector. And after I
Right.
did it, like I said, it worked out. But after I did that, I said, that probably wasn't the
Right.
wisest thing to do.
Right.
So I
It's
I
good,
wouldn't
for
probably
people
wouldn't
who
do it
just
again.
well, listen, I get it. And I think it's good like that for people who just don't understand how this stuff goes and kind of wanted to go as smooth as possible. Then that may work. You know what? I don't want to be
Mhm.
looking for this person, that person. If you can refer me because you guys are all in this field, that will work. But like you said, I think it does come to one of them situations. It's like, are they really looking out for me or they're looking out for themselves? So
Mhm.
I think I would shy away for something like that as well.
Yeah. What do you think of some, you touched on some of them already, but we talked about the different things that could go wrong in home ownership, having to pay for repairs. Do you think of any other disadvantages of home ownership?
Um, like you said, I kind of went that way with it, but it just be like I said again, just maintaining and it's one of those things. Like sometimes people can not keep their homes up to the point where it could become unlivable, and it be considered, the conditions
Mhm.
is like, they just didn't put nothing back into a home. I think
Mhm.
that's a disadvantage of home ownership for those who can't maintain a property.
Right.
Um, then, like I said, like we just said before, just the plumbing and the roofing and stuff like that. What
Mm.
about when people fall, they don't have a savings or their income changes and then they losing their home to mortgage payments or just property taxes. I think that's a disadvantage of
Yeah.
home ownership. Um,
I I read an article recently and it was talking about in Atlanta, Fulton County, they hire, I believe it was an investment company to handle collecting the taxes, the past due taxes. And there's a lot of people that lose their homes in Fulton County.
mhm,
Well, a lot of them are African American that lose their home.
mhm,
And it was just really disheartening to read the
Hmm.
article and read that some people lose their homes for $3,500.
I've seen less than that. I've seen less than that. Yeah, yeah. It's. I think that's a situation where it that should be tied into your mortgage. No ifs, no ands, or buts. You know what I'm
Well, if
saying?
it's paid for, like some people like that, a lot of times the house is paid for. Because if
Okay.
most mortgages, they do pay your, they include all of that in the mortgage, your
Okay.
taxes and your insurance.
Okay. And I think
So
in some cases they do separate because I know some people that they
some
do.
people,
So
it is separate,
yeah.
but for most people, it's all included.
Okay.
But if the house is paid for, then the bank
Yeah.
is not involved. And that's
Right.
probably when that usually happens. And that makes it even sadder
Right.
that
Oh
the
yeah, because
house
like I
is
said,
paid for and they're losing it 30, you said even less, 30.
oh, I've seen it less. I mean, I done went through because I've done it. I've bought or should I say I bought the deeds and stuff to properties that was $100. I mean,
Mm,
and sometimes it goes for years, but just depending on what you purchasing. I mean, $500. You figure this house is worth $200,000, $300,000, and for $500, okay, I'll purchase this and wait to
mhm,
see if they're gonna come up current, and
mhm,
so yeah, it's I've seen it. I've seen it on all levels because, like I said, I've purchased some of them, and it's interesting. And like I said again, within that time frame and a grace period, and it even have a thing depending on how far. Because like I said, you got some of them they go back 10 years, and it
mhm,
just keeps on tacking up. And you can pay up to the most current, or you can pay it up from the last 10 years. And like I said again, they have a grace period, and if they don't get that situated in that
mhm.
grace period, you own that home.
Right.
So for the person who have paid, purchased the taxes on it. So it
And
is it is really sad.
yeah, and I guess that there's no telling what situation that individual's in. They probably have used all of their resources and for whatever reason could not come up with the
Hmm.
money. Reading an article, one lady, her husband was sick with cancer, and you
Hmm.
know that was an expense, and probably to keep the house
Right,
going, she just couldn't do it.
right.
But
And I think a lot of times it's a memory thing. It's people are consumed with so many things, and like you said, especially if that's something that's no longer included in your mortgage payments, it can be
mhm,
easily forgotten. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right,
And you may see it and you may keep brushing it off, and then when you look, oh man, a year went by, I forgot to pay my property taxes, and now you're starting to
mhm,
fall behind. So
mhm.
it's plenty of things. Let me see what else I was thinking of. What about the people who run into liens from different creditors, or I hear a lot of times people with the HOAs, they can put liens on people's homes if they don't, if their weeds are high and they're not maintaining those, or if they're not paying the HOA dues and fees, and so I've heard all kinds of things. So you know, it's sad, but I think those are some of the the disadvantages. It's almost like you have a home, but someone is still kind of controlling you to a degree. What about people on your property and they happen to fall or get hurt? That's another one. I thought about that as well, and they turn around and sue you. So I just think that's a few of many disadvantages that come when owning a home. So
Those are some good disadvantages, Taz. Another one that kind of comes to mind is if you get a job in another area, another state, another city, if you own a home, and just say it's in a time when the market has gone depreciated like it did in 2009, where you may owe more on a house than it's worth. That could be a disadvantage it with taking that job somewhere else because you may not be able to sell your home. So those are just a few of the
right,
disadvantages.
right,
But I think generally speaking, there are more benefits than disadvantages. And some other advantages that come to mind with owning a home include the amount that you pay each month doesn't change that much like it can when you're renting. Like I said, I've been in my house almost 27 years, and the amount that I have to pay each month hasn't increased more than say about $150
And
in
that's
that amount of
excellent.
time.
That's
Yes.
excellent. As a
Mhm.
renter, we talking about they have the range to add 100 every year, 100
Mhm.
plus every year. So that's excellent.
Mhm. Yes, it went up uh, a lot this last time, and I do believe it was because of the property taxes have increased.
Hmm.
So it's kind of good when the property values, I mean, the property taxes increase because it means the property value is increasing, but you know,
Right,
we never want to pay more, but
right.
still the amount that it has increased over the years has
No,
been
can't beat
minimal.
that. Can't
No.
beat that. Take it
Mm-mm.
from a renter.
Yeah. Yes. And another thing, if I were to choose to sell the house today, I will walk away from the closing table with something,
Right,
with the equity that I have in my house. If I was renting, when you leave, I rented before, when I left, I probably got my $200 deposit and that was it.
right.
Yes, and one of the things that I like about home ownership, and I guess if you rent a house, you have this advantage also, is I could play my music as loud as I would like to play it without disturbing my neighbors. When
Right.
I moved into my first apartment, I had not been there probably more than a couple of weeks, if even that long. I was playing Janet Jackson on my boom box, and then the phone rang, and it was my leasing office, and they
Wow.
said, can you are you playing music? And I said, yes. They said, can you turn it down? One of the neighbors are complaining. One of the
Hmm.
neighbors is complaining. I
Yep.
said, what? And I don't like super loud music, but
Right.
I was like, this is unreal.
Hmm.
And also my neighbor downstairs, he asked me if I could take not put my shoes on in the morning when I'm getting ready for work, because he could hear me walking. And the apartment was carpeted except the kitchen and the bathroom. And
Right.
those rooms are super small. And I might just go in the kitchen and grab my lunch or something. It probably was just
Hmm.
a few seconds. And I was like, this was really crazy.
Yeah. Those are definitely some disadvantages of renting, but yeah, no, and you have those individuals, and to be honest, you're starting to find that in communities where homes are, even as a homeowner, I've rented to people who dealt with the same type of situation where you having a party or you having some guests, and okay, maybe the music is extending outside your
That's
home,
true.
and
Mhm.
same thing, the neighbors are calling or they're going to call the cops, and I think it's
Mhm.
it's so it's terrible. Now it's one thing if that's a situation where it's constantly going and your house
No,
is
if it's
constantly
every
no.
weekend.
Right, I could see that, but even still, you pay for your home and you shouldn't really have to deal with those things versus someone being in an apartment. But yeah, it just all depends on really, because sometimes people do kind of feel like they're prisoners in their own homes, as well, when you got to deal with certain things.
Mhm.
um so yeah.
I think certain people really should live. People that are that sensitive to sound need to live on 20 acres of land by themselves.
Oh, absolutely. But and that's what kills me about a lot of people. They get these houses, and well, first of all, they're making a lot of these houses closer, and like
Mhm.
you said, don't let it be where they can hear the noise outside, or you happen to open the door because you let someone in and they hear that, oh, it's a ruckus for them. So yeah, but that has happened in homes as well. So
Mhm.
but like you
Yeah.
said, the benefits of just being able to walk away with something in your pocket, and kind of start the process over, or come out on top, should I say,
Mhm.
with this is what you purchased it for, and it done tripled or doubled, doubled or tripled. I think that's excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, so I am an advocate of home ownership. I would like to see as many African Americans move towards home ownership if that's something they do desire.
Hmm.
And I know the prices now are a lot more than they were, just say 10 years ago. But who knows what the economy is going to do? I hope there's not a recession, but if there is a recession, that could be the optimum time for somebody to purchase a home.
Right,
So
right.
we'll see what happens.
Well, I
So just
think where we at now, I think it's pushing a lot of people to, consider that more so. And just myself as a renter, I wasn't really pressed to purchase, but over the last few years and circumstances have made me look at it harder than I ever have. And it's because of the rent going up
mhm.
and up and up
Mhm.
and up. And I think it is ridiculous for something that you don't own. And you mentioned with people that's renting, if it's apartments, you know how many people don't even get their little deposit back. That's a whole nother topic.
Mm.
A lot of people
Mm.
leave, everything's immaculate, and these companies are holding people's monies.
Mm. Mm.
And
Mm.
even when they're supposed to give and they have a time frame to give, they're just abusing that all as well. um I just one of my kids was talking today, and she was having a problem with just trying to get into an apartment, and she's just like, you go from this apartment to that apartment, and you thinking you got everything you need, and they just want to take your application fees. And so it's a lot to that, and by the
I
time you
heard
look
people
up.
talk about that. They just
Hmm.
want those fees, and they could make a lot of money off the fees.
Right, we don't have to bring you in. She was like, Mom, they keep telling me about my credit, and I'm like, yeah. And I said, but see, unless that has changed, that's bull crap. And like I told her, I said, you just have to, just do your due diligence and keep looking, and basically just get with an agency and let them know, like, this is what I'm looking for. And tell them you want something where they're not charging application fees, or even like, you got a free first month or something like that. I said, because this is the stuff that they're doing. Or start making these people held accountable for them just scamming people when it comes just to the
Mhm.
application fees. Because if your credit is six something, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get in there. That's the whole thing about it. If your credit is not that great to their liking, like I said, apparently this must be a new thing. Your credit must got to be sky high. But if she's in a six something, what is the problem? Okay, it ain't the best, but it ain't the worst. So then you ask yourself, what happened to with my credit not being the best, the extra deposit? Because that's what normally happens. You get what I'm
Okay.
saying? But they're not
Mhm.
even, from what she's telling me, they're not even, offering her that. So that lets me know that they're just trying to collect fees. And
Well, now that she knows what her credit score is, she should have that conversation with them. My credit score is X. Can I get an apartment here? Yes or no without them running it.
right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. But I guess, but you got to remember, not everybody's so transparent, because, like I said, if you go to a few of them, they kind of one telling you this, the next one you don't know what to believe.
Mm.
And that's
Mhm.
why I was
They
trying to
might
tell
say
her.
something like, "We don't have a certain score that we look at. We have to look at the
That's
whole
my point.
thing."
That's my
Yeah.
point. So they give you the runaround, and being kind of young, you know how that is. So I just told her, I said, well, listen, I'm not in an apartment, but it's still one of those situations where it's like, that doesn't sound right and that's not making sense. You get what I'm saying? So I just like, hey, go to them agencies, let them do the legwork, tell them what you're looking for, and most importantly, try to find the ones who are not taking application fees. So then that'll
Mhm.
eliminate and cut down on these ones that's just trying to do it just to be doing it. Because as long as I've known, hey, whether your credit was good or not, okay, well, your credit's not that great to our liking, we're gonna charge you another deposit, or we're gonna charge you another rent, a month's rent or whatever. And the way
Mm.
she's talking, like they're not even offering her that. So clearly they're doing something that's not making sense out here now.
Mm. Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, so
And this is one of the bare necessities of life, having somewhere to live.
absolutely, absolutely. But when you have other people in control of that, look what you have to deal with.
Mhm.
So
And and we may talk about another time how these new housing developments are being built and they're renting out the
right.
whole development as opposed to selling the houses.
Yep. That's a new way of making it in real estate. It's so much to these topics out here now. It's you really have to do continuations, because it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank y'all for joining us. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment. And if you have any suggestions for any new shows, let us know. Anything else, Taz?
Nope. Until next time, guys. Peace.
Thank you.